Hi, my name is Gonzalo Bravo. I am the diver that you can see there on the screen, and today I'm gonna talk about the backstage of our educational program that is called Diving to Our Ocean, Discover the Underwater World of Our Own City. I am from Argentina in South America, particularly from a small town that is called Puerto Madryn that is on the coast of Nuevo Gulf. This is a small gulf of around 100 kilometers wide, and we have really calm waters, and this is one of the main reasons that the right whales come to these waters each year. So the whales are the main attraction in Puerto Madryn. Everything is about whales. Even if you want, you can buy chocolates with the shape of the whales. If you stop anybody in the street and you ask them something about whales, for example, how long they are or what they eat, it's probably that they are going to give you the right answer. However, if you ask to the same person about marine invertebrates that live in the rocky reef in the same area, it's certainly that they are not going to know such information. I work with benthic communities in the rocky reef, and I want to spread the information about this organism that lives in the rocky reef in Patagonia. Most of the time when I give talks about rocky reef, people ask me about, yes, whales. They always come to the conversation, and sometimes I wonder why I didn't study whales instead of rocky reef. And a few months ago, for example, one local artist contacted me because she was creating an educational book, and she wants to include Patagonia in the book, and obviously in this book the main attraction was the whale. However, I managed to add some short texts about rocky reef in Patagonia, and even with a QR code I was able to show in the book some species that we have in the rocky reef. So we use a lot underwater pictures and videos to share information about the marine invertebrates. We use the photos to show the beauty of the rocky reef and also the colors. Even though if we live in cold, we have cold waters here in Argentina. During the winter we arrive at 9 degrees more or less. We also have some colorful animals in the reef. However, in this last year I came across with this technology that is a full face mask diving and a trident ROV, and using these technologies together we can give underwater lessons of the rocky reef. So what is a full face diving mask? It's a mask where you are able to speak and somebody in the surface is going to listen to you, and you can record the sound that you are speaking. Also, this kind of equipment is wireless, so you don't need to have a cable that go into the surface. On the other side, we have a ROV. You know, nowadays ROV are more affordable and cheaper, and this particularly that is called Trident ROV can reach up to 100 meters deep, and you can control this ROV using a cell phone or a tablet, and you can also record video. For us, this was we received this ROV as a donation of the Science Exploration and Education Initiative. So if you put together these two technologies, you can broadcast live from the seafloor. And this is what we have been doing in Proyecto Sub. Here you can see a photo where we have a group of students that are on a boat, and that boat have a TV, so we are able to see what the ROV is recording, and we can talk about the species we are watching. As in this case, for example, you can see a nudibranch there, and so we can really interact with students while we are watching a video like this one. Here is an example. So here Rob is exploring a small cave in a rocky reef. So here we can see the overhand surface. As you can see, we have a lot of anemones, sponges, tunicates, some mussels there. So while we are watching this video, we can talk about the species that live there and give some particular details of them. But as you all know, during the pandemic, we were not able to give these lessons in the sea or in the pier, so we thought about of going virtually. So this year we participate in the Patagonia Eco Film Fest, that is a festival here in Puerto Madryn, and we decided to present a video about the diver going around the rocky reef. And in this case, instead of using the ROV, we use a regular underwater camera to film the diver, and then using edition tools, we merge the sound of the diver talking and the video. We present this video on YouTube, and we were really happy because a lot of people watch it. Around 900 people watch this video during the festival. I'm gonna show you 1 minute of this video so you can see how it looks.
Aquí tenemos algunas anémonas metrillocerinas que sean de un pedúnculo bastante largo y siempre se ubican en esta región del borde del alero del arrecife. También tenemos una pequeña bacteria minuta o bacteria tártica. Tenemos cangrejos que son chiquitos y por ahí no los pueden ver. Tenemos tébula patagónica, un gasterópodo que es muy abundante. Fíjense acá, tenemos casi 7 u 8 ejemplares en una zona muy pequeña.
So after we post the video in social media and YouTube, we receive a lot of comments about it. Most of them were talking about the fish because we record an interaction, a really nice interaction between the diver and a rocky reef fish, and most of the comments were about this friendly animal. But also, while we were recording the video, we find some plastic bag, and also a lot of comments were about the plastic pollution. However, when we analyze the detail of the statistics on the video, we realize that only 38% of the people watched the whole complete video, the last 8 minutes, and most of them watched around 3 minutes of it. So this was kind of disappointed because we thought that at the beginning that there was a really good interaction with the people, and then with this information we are available to think about this activity and try to make shorter videos for the next experience. So with this, I want to say thank you for listening my presentation, and also I'm going to invite you to take a look to a network that we are working here in South America called Relato. Relato is a lot of people that work in marine education that come together to share experience and information. So there you have the social media, and you can check also the website. Also, I want to say thanks to Proyecto Sud Foundation, that is mostly the NGO that fund most of these activities, and I leave you also there the social media to take a look. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Bart De Smet from the Flanders Marine Institute. I am trained as a marine biologist, and I'm currently working as a science communicator at the Flemish Marine Institute, VLIS. I will present you briefly a product we recently made, a virtual visit to our research vessel Simon Stevin. First of all, I'll start explaining what is a digital twin. So we made a virtual tour. You even could call it a digital twin, but there are many definitions for a digital twin. Generally speaking, it is a digital replica of a living or a non-living physical entity, and it has two major characteristics. The first one is that there should be a connection between the physical model and the corresponding virtual model. And the second characteristic is that the connection between the physical model and the virtual model should be established by generating real-time data coming from sensors. Why am I telling this? Because we called this tool a digital twin, but actually what we developed wasn't a real digital twin because there is no real connection between the physical model and the virtual model. Well, there is no real-time connection at least, so there are no real-time data visible in the tool, as you will see later on. So actually it's better to call it a building information modeling. However, this term is not as sexy as a digital. So we prefer to call it a digital twin, and I will use this term in the rest of the presentation. So the research vessel Simon Stevin is a Flemish research vessel. It's a multidisciplinary research vessel, which is mainly used for coastal oceanographic research in the southern bight of the North Sea. The ship is owned by the Flemish government, but the Flemish Marine Institute manages the scientific program and the research equipment. Some of the main research lines that are conducted on board are, for instance, climate change related research or ecological monitoring in windmill farms in the Belgian part of the North Sea, or research on the paleo landscapes and the bottom of the North Sea. Maybe you're wondering why it's called Simon Stevin. Simon Stevin is a former Belgian mathematician who gave his name to this ship. And then we can ask the question, why do you want a digital twin of this Simon Stevin? Why is it so important? Well, there are a few reasons for this. First of all, unless you're a scientist or you're a member of the crew, it's very difficult to get access to a research vessel because it's very expensive to hire the vessel to go out at sea, and there's not much time. All time slots are fully packed to conduct as much research as possible. So it's very difficult for groups of students, pupils, guides, or even the public at large to get on the ship. One day or now and then there are we plan trips with groups of students and so on, but it's only a few days a year. And then one day a year we have the annual Flemish Science Day in Belgium. And then we open the doors of the ship and people can visit the ship. There is a guided tour. Both scientists and crew members give information on the activities that take place on the ship. Secondly, we also have the weather dependency. So we plan visits with groups and go out at sea. But if the weather is bad, then the trip is cancelled. So it's something else we have to take into account. And then finally, of course, the virus, due to the virus, our annual Science Day couldn't take place this year, so we had to cancel the physical visit, and therefore we came up with an alternative, namely this virtual tour, a digital twin with a virtual tour, so people can visit or have the feeling that they visit the ship, but virtually. I will briefly explain you how we made this product. So from the collection of the images up to the final end product, the virtual tour. So first of all, we hired a company called Mated. It's a team of geographers who collected the images. They have a special card with a camera, and it takes 360 degrees pictures. And with this card, it's possible to take pictures in the small corridors and the small rooms on board and at the different floors. So secondly, all these images were collected, they were stitched together, and or the company, they produced the panoramas, the panoramic pictures, and they published them on an online viewer. This is a commercial online viewer. It's called Interviewer of the company Navis. As you can see here, an example of an image in the engine room. So besides the images, you see a map in the lower right corner, and you see navigation tools on the left of the image. So for us, mainly the images were important, especially because we want to visualize the ship and the activities. But there is more. There are not only the images, but behind every image there is a load of data points. So actually, the entire tool is backed up by an enormous cloud of data which can be used. So we mainly now use the images to visualize, but you can do much more with it because of all the data underlying the images. So it's possible to make very detailed measurements on board. This might be very useful from a technical point of view, and so on. And then once all the images were in the online viewer, we could add ourselves a lot of points of interest. You can compare it with Google Street View, for instance, where you can walk in streets and cities, and you can observe a lot of things, and then people can add pins and images to certain objects. It's similar here. So for a lot of objects on board of the ship, we added a pin with some additional information and pictures, as you can see here on the right. My apologies, it's in Dutch, but it's just the concept I would like to show. So a lot of points of interest can be made, and based on a selection of these points of interest, you can make a virtual tour. So at the start of when you start the tool, then you get this pop-up window. You can give it a title, and then you can select some points of interest which guides the visitors through the ship. So you can use as a visitor the arrows and navigate through the vessel. I will now show a small video on how it looks, so you get a glimpse of the tool. And as you can see here as well, we also made a branding for the tour, because it was designed for this annual Science Day, but we aimed to use it also for other events, for instance, for guided tours with students at university, or for other events and so on. So therefore, we made a quite general branding which can be used even after the annual Science Day. So I will show you the video now. Might be that it's a bit slow due to the internet connection. So this is the start of the virtual tour. Science Day, Dag van de Wetenschap. And then you see on the left-hand side the information attached to a point of interest. On the right-hand side, you have the map, and all of these circles are locations you can navigate to. And then if you use the arrows, you can go forward or backward in the virtual tour. So now we are at the bridge of the ship. You can turn around 360 degrees, you can even move. And then there is this additional information and pictures, videos, and even audio fragments can be embedded in the tool. So we used a lot of multimedia to make it more attractive for the public. So different rooms in the ship have their own point of interest with the additional information. And you can move from one floor to another. On the right-hand side, you see the different floors, and you can select and hence move from one floor to another very easily. So now we're going back to the upper floor. We were very lucky with the sunny weather when we collected the images. And then with this drop-down menu, you can also select one of the points of interest and go directly to your preferred point of interest. For instance, the engine room here. Okay, so just to have a brief idea of how the tool looks. One of the big advantages of this tool is that in this stage, it's quite basic, but you can extend it. As I said before, we call it a digital twin, but it's no real digital twin. But it is possible to add more data and real life data from sensors. And in a next stage, you could even include artificial intelligence. And by doing this, you evolve more to a real digital twin. So there are a lot of possibilities. This is only first step or the basics. That's more or less it. I will, to conclude or to wrap up, I'll give you some pros and cons. We only released this tool about 2 weeks ago, so it's a bit difficult to already come up with an evaluation, the number of visitors and so on. But I listed some positive and negative things of the tool. One of the pros is that it's always accessible. So you can access the ship from wherever you want, everywhere in the world, from a mobile device. It's not dependent on the weather, and you don't get seasick, so that's a good thing. Second positive thing is that we as creators have administrator rights, and we can adjust the tours whenever we need. So we don't have to go back to the company to adjust things. We can do it ourselves, and we can make adjustments depending on the events or the audience we want to target. So actually it's a one-time investment. We bought the tool once and now we can adjust it ourselves. So that's a very good thing. Some negative points, you get the feeling that you are on the ship. However, it's not the same thing as really being on the ship. So it's not the same experience. That's something we can't really deal with. And then the second thing, we noticed that the tool is you can easily use the tool on your laptop or on a tablet, but so far on a smartphone, it's not ideal. So we might have to change this in the future, and let's hope this is possible. So this is more or less it. If you're interested in visiting the ship and taking the virtual tour, you can go to this web link, and hopefully you enjoy it.
Hi everyone, my name is Gavin O'Neill. I'm a postdoctoral researcher working in the Marai Centre of University College Cork in the south of Ireland, and today I'm going to talk to you about some of the work I've carried out with two of my colleagues on the use of Twitter as a science communication tool on the topic of anthropogenic underwater noise. So first, what is anthropogenic underwater noise? So this is all sources of underwater sound caused by human activities in the marine environment. And when these sounds exceed certain thresholds, they've been shown to have both physiological and behavioral effects on a wide variety of marine life. So much so that these are now recognized as a global environmental concern, and monitoring as such is required under legislation, so for example, under the MSFD. But why do we need to have effective communication around this topic? Previous studies have shown that an increased public awareness allows for more widespread discussion of mitigation across all levels of society. But to date, underwater noise has largely been omitted from societal discourse concerning the health of our marine environment. And perhaps this can be narrowed down to two main challenges. So the first is the fact that the effects on marine life are often not directly observable, which is depicted in the image in the top left here. And when potential effects of underwater noise, such as the mass stranding of marine mammals, which is depicted in the image in the bottom left, do occur, it's often difficult to disentangle whether this has occurred due to underwater noise or other potential factors that led to the event. The second point here is that associated science communication around this topic cannot empower individuals towards change. And to best explain this, it's good to look at another example of a marine issue, such as marine litter, whereby communicating this issue can result in an individual taking direct action, for example, a 2-minute beach clean or more responsible disposal of waste, to have an effect. So how do we go about getting this message across? One method that's now widely perceived as an effective means to support science communication is the use of social media, and in particular Twitter. A paper published in 2018 has a nice description of social media use for scientists, which I've quoted here. And in particular, I'd like to draw your attention to the last point, where the authors describe social media as a tool for teaching and learning. And this is, in a sense, a nice precursor to the study I'm about to outline here, where we use what we find on social media to learn how to improve science communication around our topic of interest. However, social media use is not without its limitations, and the degree to which homophilia is present in social media needs to be assessed. This is a social phenomenon, also referred to as the echo chamber, whereby users limit their audience and their associations to individuals who are like-minded. And to determine how successful social media use is as a science communication tool within this topic, this needs to be assessed. And this found the first aim of the study. So we wanted to look at who's talking about underwater noise. The second is to use a comparative learning approach. So how does Twitter use around underwater noise science communication compare to what some may call a marine science communication success story, marine litter, and the discussion of the marine environment in general? Then lastly, what can we learn from this? So first we had to collect some data. In order to extract tweets relevant to our three topics, we utilized hashtags. Hashtags are valuable tools to increase the dispersal of and engagement with content online. But they also allow posts under a certain theme to be grouped and then extracted. So to determine what are the most popular hashtags used in our 3 topics of interest, we used a program called Hashtagify to select the key terms that we would then use in our search. These hashtags were then used to extract tweets through the network extraction tool NodeXL. So tweets were extracted every 9 days from early December 2019 through to mid-March 2020. This period of 9 days was used because this is the retention time of data within this program. And this resulted in a data set of over 71,000 tweets. Now that we had our data set, we carried out 2 data processing steps in the statistical software R. So the first step was to define each tweeter based on their biographical data. So previous studies have shown that within the scientific community, many people identify themselves and their careers within their biographies. And using text mining approaches, keywords and terms can be built to then group these users into categories based on the text within their biography. So here, tweeters were grouped into 6 different categories, from academics to those working in applied conservation bodies, decision makers, media, general public, which are defined as those with information and details in their biography that were not included in the key terms in the previous strings, and those unknown. So those are people without any information within their biography. Now that we had defined each user into a category, we carried out a sentiment analysis to look at the sentiment within the posts. So essentially this allows us to determine if the message within the post is using negative, neutral, or positive language. And here we use the AFIN method, which provides a score between -5 and 5 based on the language and how positive, negative, or neutral this is. So to answer our first question, who is talking about these topics? Here you can see the makeup of the original tweets based on the groupings I've mentioned in the previous slide. So the main points I'd like you to take away from this figure are: 1, the number of tweets within each group outlined below each pie chart. 2, the majority of the tweets talking about the marine environment in general and marine litter, the 2 on the left, are dominated by those who do not identify as members of the scientific community, whereas in comparison, on the pie chart on the right, around underwater noise, you can see that over half of these are made by academics. And to look at the engagement with these tweets, we did the information relevant to those who retweeted these posts. So we see a similar pattern emerge whereby public engagement with both generic ocean and marine litter tweets is a lot higher compared to underwater noise. But again, underwater noise tweets made by academics are only being shared by academics. From the sentiment analysis, we can explore if attitudes expressed around these topics differ. Interestingly, on the topics of marine litter and underwater noise, the sentiment scores were very similar. However, differences emerge across groups within a given topic. And here, for underwater noise, we found that general public are more positive in their use of language surrounding underwater noise compared to those made by academics and the media. And when you relate this to the success of a tweet, which here we define as the number of favorites and the number of retweets, more positive use of language in posts were the most engaged with, and this supports previous findings. To summarize, A range of environmental policies that require mitigation have been shown to benefit from public support. Currently, societal discourse on underwater noise is limited by a high degree of homophily. And to break out of this, first we need to start talking about anthropogenic underwater noise and its effects. But it's important that when we do so, we use accessible and positive language. Information accompanied by images and resources has been shown to be most successful in previous studies. So this should be incorporated into going forward. Finally, the issues and concepts outlined here are not solely related to underwater noise and social media use through Twitter. There is a need for concurrent growth in science communication and best practice guidelines going forward. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any of your questions.